What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I am back with another album review, and one that I would say is definitely pretty anticipated, both for its very eclectic fan base and honestly for me, because I'm kind of starting to maybe understand this band a little bit more. So today we are going over the latest offering from Imperial Triumphant, Goldstar. This also comes out on the 21st of March on Century Media Records. This band formed in 2005 in New York City. This is their sixth album overall. I actually went over Spirit of Ecstasy as a solo review. You can go back and watch that and see my perpetually confused face on that one. And then John and I actually went over their covers collection, which was pretty damn interesting, honestly. And for those that don't know, this band is something else. A twisted, warped sort of version of black metal, death metal, avant-garde metal, jazz. It's a lot of things. It's very strange. My relationship with this band is that of like perpetual confusion, but I'm also very drawn to this band in terms of just wanting to understand it. There's so much going on in their sound, and there are elements that I really enjoy. It's just you have to sift through all the dense layers generally. And when it comes down to listening to this band in terms of like full lengths, I have only really listened to Spirit of Ecstasy and Alphaville. I haven't listened to any of their earlier stuff except for like tracks here and there. And I keep meaning to go back and check out more of their stuff because, again, I am kind of just drawn to this weird entity that they are. Like, this is, you know, to me, like going to a party with a bunch of your friends and you just have the weird friend that, you know, they're generally really cool and they're fun to talk to, but inevitably they get down some weird rabbit hole that generally starts off with, hey, so I saw this on Reddit and I totally believe it, even though it's just batshit crazy, but let me tell you about it. And it might involve some weird conspiracy theory involving like reptilian hatchlings being found in the New York subway system or some shit like that. And you're like, man, everything up to this point was really cool. And now I am just looking for a way out of this conversation. That kind of describes Imperial Triumphant for me because there's a lot of cool stuff going on. And then inevitably it hits this really weird point where it's just too damn much and I have to check out for a bit. Spirit of Ecstasy for me, that was like, God, like listening to like Bluedos Nord, Miles Davis at the same time, all while watching, you know, The Shining and being on like a hefty dose of mescaline. And that was kind of what I expected with this one up until I heard one of the early singles, Pleasure Dome, which actually features Dave Lombardo doing some awesome percussion and Thomas Huck, I'm not entirely sure how to say his last name, the amazing drummer of Meshuggah doing some guest vocals. And immediately I was like, wait a minute, this is actually kind of catchy. So I was really curious about this one because that was one of the catchiest songs I think I had heard from this band. And we may have hit some sort of watershed moment with my relationship with this band because this album I got, like, it clicked with me. There wasn't a lot of just like, okay, let me see if I could just calculate what I'm feeling here and why am I sweating and is my nose bleeding right now? What did this album do to me? There was none of that. This clicked with me immediately. And after multiple listens, I would say that this is probably their most refined and catchiest album. The first two tracks in here did something that I just feel like Imperial Triumphant doesn't do enough, and it delivers riffs. Generally, you know, with Imperial Triumphant, the thing that I get with their sound is just spiraling, twisted, dissonant, atonal riffs and crazy jazz-infused drums and nuts bass lines, and to the point where it almost feels like they're all playing a different song, but it does come together at certain points. These first two tracks, Eyes of Mars and Gomorrah Nouveau, both of them have chuggy, syncopated riffs, a little bit more in the way of like some standard grooves and blast beat patterns. It's still very haunting, it's still very dissonant and atonal, but in terms of song structure, I feel like they kind of like let off a little bit on the weirdness pedal, and I mean, may have brought in some more contemporary styles in terms of like song structure because these songs are catchy. And this sort of thing is all over this album. Hotel Sphinx, Rot Modern, Pleasure Dome, they all have these catchy syncopated riffs. They're still technical, they're still very strange, and the atmosphere is just dark and unnerving and unsettling. But at the same time, there's like riffs to really hold on to, and they stick with them for a while. That is something that I really didn't get with a lot of their earlier material, because it just became like this like acid jazz blackened death metal fucking existential nightmare. Not saying that this isn't like nightmarish and hellish and apocalyptic sounding, but again, it feels more approachable. This might be like the most normal sounding album this band has ever done. Normal for them, there's like an asterisk on normal in this case. And I think it's for like a number of reasons. The first thing that I really noticed is the guitar work itself. The guitar work itself is maybe like a little bit less spastic and more broken down. Like you have more broken down chuggy moments. You have like more straightforward grooves where the riff syncopation isn't like so gloriously off time. You have to break out an abacus to kind of figure out the fucking time signature, if you could actually do that. I don't know. And there's more like riff variety on here. Like there's some more standard melodies that show up. The end of Industry of Misery has like one of the catchiest melodies I think this band has ever written. Hotel Sphinx has these really cool tapping harmonies that I think are just catchier than hell. But in terms of like throughout the entire songs, you know, the dynamics I think are a little bit more broken up. Like you get more spaces of atmosphere, the lead-ins to riffs. They're not always the big jarring transitions. Sometimes they're let in very smoothly. And I noticed a lot of stuff that felt like kind of like callbacks to like mathcore bands like Botch and Coalesce, maybe even a little bit of Dillinger Escape Plan. It isn't always like death metal and black metal riffs on here. These broken up, syncopated, you know, more like mathcore chugs, they really kind of like hark back to a, you know, earlier style of metalcore that I was a big fan of. But also it does share some common grounds with bands like Dysrhythmia, Krallice, Behold the Arctopus. Probably a good reason for that. This was produced and mixed by Colin Marston and mastered by Arthur Risk, which honestly, there's another reason why I really like this. The mix on here is really solid. Everything is very separated. It doesn't sound clean. It doesn't sound overproduced. This still sounds raw and gritty when it needs to, but there's more clarity on here. And clarity, I think, was kind of needed because, again, all these notes that were buzzing around and blast beats and crazy turnovers and weird elastic bass lines, it can get to be too much to absorb. Here, it's a little bit more distinguishable and you can actually pick out some cool melodies. A lot of this feels like they went back and kind of like listened to like a lot of stuff that was like more avant-garde or cutting edge or, you know, a little bit more pioneering and experimental years ago. Things that we kind of see as like a little bit more commonplace, like, you know, glitchy start-stop riffing, you know, stuff that, you know, bands like Voivod and Meshuggah have definitely pulled off before. And again, like a lot of this mathcore stuff mixed in with like a lot of dissonant death metal and black metal. And instead of like evolving the sound to sound even more experimental, even more, you know, hard to like distinguish or discern or anything like that, they took what they already did and found a way to make it catchy. Even the vocals feel more clear, like they're definitely distorted, they're definitely dark and low and very, you know, grumbly, but you can actually make out more of the words. They don't feel as muffled overall. The drum work, while it is still absolutely insane, like it's just hard to process a lot of these time signatures, but there's some like straight up grooves on here, and again, points where they kind of like let off the gas a bit to kind of let the atmosphere take over a bit and then build the song from that point. Like Lexington Delirium. You get isolated guitars that start off, they're kind of clean and chimey, playing a very David Lynch style sort of melody. It's very creepy and very haunting, but there's like this little bit of like, I don't know, country western twang to it. You get this amazing crawling bass line that comes in behind it, and then this sort of like broken up strumming pattern that gives way to melodic tremolo harmonies. And they're not like super dissonant atonal tremolo harmonies. Like it doesn't sound like you're trapped in a room with like, I don't know, 1,000 bees and TVs all blaring TV static. They're legit like just very catchy and very dark and just very alluring. Hotel Sphinx also has a lot of catchy moments on it too, like some really fun off-time grooves, like some jazzy swings, really cool atmospheric moments. In fact, the end of that has a very Clockwork Orange-esque synth part that I absolutely love. The biggest standout for me though is the last track, Industry of Misery, which is a good slow build, almost has like some post-metal characteristics in terms of the song build. Like starts off very slow, very noirish, but like again, kind of like David Lynch noir. Like there's horns in it. There's, you know, a really cool kind of like slippery bass line, but it's just like a little bit off in terms of the meter. Like it kind of has this weird drunken swagger. And then when it does get heavy, it does keep that aesthetic. Like the riffs constantly slide, so the bass lines, the drum patterns like a little bit off time too. Like there's a stumble in the song itself. There's even some transitions into what I would almost call like doom metal in there, but it's the end of the song. This amazing blues lead comes in, and then you get this like dissonant melody that kind of carries out the song, and it's legit just catchy. Like it feels like something I've heard like a dozen times on like a Cult of Luna album. And I like that, you know, they do their thing by making the song kind of slowly unravel towards the end. Like as this melody goes on, it has a more straightforward groove. You hear more soundscapes and noise, and starts building up in terms of like that unsettling, unnerving sort of nature that this band just kind of puts off, and then kind of fades out into like a synthy hum. And the atmosphere in here, once again, I think is awesome. It's not as cluttered though. Like not every moment on here is just pockmarked with, you know, cityscape noises and samples and, you know, what sounds like, again, like TV static and just, you know, just crazy soundscapes. It's still there, but it's more spaced out and I think used more effectively. Like there's a couple of moments on here where a sample will come in and talk about their allegiance to Satan, and then all of a sudden it sounds like all the noises on a New York street, which is something that this band does a lot anyway. They're definitely very vested in their hometown, and that kind of like, I don't know, like weird sort of like downtown in the 1950s sort of vibe. Like oddly enough, I still envision like Art Deco buildings and all that shit, except they're packed full of like mass people that are probably having parties like they did in Eyes Wide Shut, because I have to make that reference every time I listen to this band. I mean, even the album cover kind of oozes that sort of energy. The first thing I thought when I saw that was like, man, that looks like the chick from the Metropolis cover, except she's got an OnlyFans now. Now around the middle of the album, it does get a little, I don't know, different, like kind of just out of nowhere. New York City is a 45-second grindcore fit that kind of comes out of nowhere. Features Yoshiko Ohara of the band Bloody Panda, where she's just like yowling and screaming. There's some interesting effects on her vocals where you get this like warbling effect that's blasty, it's fast, it's noisy, and then it is done. And that gives way to the title track, which the title track is a 1950s cigarette jingle that they turned into like a little ditty. Like it kind of kicks off with the whole Happy Trails melody, which instantly I thought of Van Halen for that one. But when you listen to the lyrics, it's like this weird kind of occultish cigarette commercial. Like they do say cigarettes in there, and that would 100% be like a 1950s sort of jingle for it. Like, hey, get a pack of Winstons. Why don't you get one for the kids too? And maybe get a pack of Virginia Slims for the lady too, because she's not allowed to smoke a man's cigarette. Those two tracks kind of make up this weird little point in the middle of the album where I feel like it didn't take itself as seriously and kind of had fun. It wasn't so much about like a weird, you know, like avant-garde thing. It was just like, hey, these are just kind of like fun and we can kind of pepper them in for atmosphere. And I kind of dug that. I kind of dug this entire album. Like, there's a lot of stuff on here that I found just very catchy. And that makes me wonder how like the rest of their fan base is kind of absorbing this one, because it is very different. I would say it's also their catchiest album, which if I'm saying it's catchy and I've been kind of just on the outskirts of like really liking this band, I kind of wonder if there's like a issue with the rest of the fans saying this is too accessible. This is their sellout album or whatever. It could very well be. Like, I really don't know. Like, this is still very dissonant and atonal and crazy as hell and 100% them, but I do feel that they put an effort into making these songs a lot catchier, to the point where I don't have a lot of negative things to say. In fact, I really only have positive things to say, because this actually kind of grabbed me in a way that none of their albums have so far. It's definitely a combination of things: production, riff work, song structure. I think the album flows really well too, but I would still say like in no way that this is like starter metal. Like, you know, if you were just getting into like Metallica and like Pantera, the next logical step would be this band. I'm never gonna fucking say that, but I will say that this kind of opens up some more possibilities in terms of their sound, and, it still 100% sounds like them. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars, and honestly, kind of wavering close to the 4.5 mark. This is the first time that I have really thoroughly enjoyed one of their albums and not just left a confused, drooling mess in terms of what the fuck am I going to say about this album. Legit, there's only so many times I can say, dude, this is fucking weird. I don't know what's going on. My brain hurts from listening to this, but it's kind of like a good hurt. This one was more like pleasant brain tinglies because they were doing some really cool shit that I could latch onto a bit more. And that kind of opened up the door for like the weirder sections to just kind of meander about and do all their crazy shit. Like, it started to really click with me. The riff work, I think, is a big key in here. A lot more of these chuggy riffs and like these kind of squawky off time ones. There's some connections to like mathcore stuff that I could make, and it started to make sense because I've been listening to that stuff for years. But also the stellar production, and again, like musicianship, I will never dog these guys in terms of musicianship. They're on some other level when it comes down to their playing ability. But I think these songs actually gel better. I think they stand out a little bit more. And yeah, overall, I would say in terms of the albums that I have listened to, this is probably my favorite one. But yeah, if you're a fan of, I would still say like Blue Dot Nord, Krallis, Dysrhythmia, but again, also some stuff that sounds like Coalesced and Botch and Dillinger Escape Plan too. And I don't know, like some like flat out, like kind of ugly, dissonant death metal, like, God, maybe like Incantation at points too. There's definitely some Morbid Angel moments too. I don't know. This band's still difficult to describe, but I think this is a really awesome album and should definitely check it out. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They're only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we will be doing one probably later, mid to late April, I think, and who knows what we'll talk about. We might do a themed one, we might not. We might just sit around and chit-chat, but generally they're always fun. But memberships are the main way to support the channel now. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our hats and shirts. That is linked down below in the video description. And of course, if you would like to join this channel, there's a join button down there, and you can just punch the shit out of it. It doesn't care. The screen of your phone or your laptop or your computer might care substantially more, but yeah, just hit that thing. And of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following. Again, this means the world to us, this channel growing and becoming even bigger. And again, we just love going over all this crazy metal. We love that you guys seem to love that we love that. It's a lot of love. That's a lot of love to process there. Either way, ton of content coming in the future. So one more big thank you because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.